live now. Okay, and we are live now.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
All right, so we'll kickstart now. Good afternoon, lady and gentlemen.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay, first of all, thank you for agreeing to participate in this session number 2, entitled Post MCO Cash Flow Matters. All right, so we actually have completed the session 1 on Monday in regards to the obligation of an employer during MCO and post MCO. So we are glad this round to have our panelists, 3 of them, namely Dr. Aimee, Thomas, and Shazli.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello everyone. Once
All right.
again, I'm the only lady here.
Okay.
Yeah, so co-moderated together with me is Amelia from Q3. So what we do is we're going to do a quick introduction among the 3 panelists, your name and where you're from and what do you do, before we head on to our what do you call it, Q&A session.
Maybe Dr. Aimee would like to start first.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Amelia. Very good afternoon. Assalamualaikum to everybody on the panel who is also on the online just currently. It's been a pleasure for me to be invited here. Thank you very much to Q3, especially to Amelia, for having me here today. Just a bit from background. I'm a lecturer actually at UniKL Business School. Area is finance, but I do give a lot of economic analysis in the media. If you can find me on the media, so very much trying to help the nation. That's my mission.
That's good.
Okay.
Thomas.
Yes, hello. Thanks for inviting for me from the Alvin and Amelia. Okay, actually I'm the managing director on the ESD RSA management. Our firm, our company is the corporate consultant. So we focus on the debt restructuring and debt recovery in Malaysia. In overseas, focus on the MA, merge and execution. So that's why the today topic is mesh on my specialty.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. How about Shazli? Last but not least.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. So thanks again, Alvin and Amelia. It's a new experience for me basically in this webinar. Anyway, I'm a director of Q3 Management Solutions. My background is basically in corporate governance. Basically, I started my journey from external auditor up until managing the risk management department of a company. Our focus in Q3 is basically to look into business management. We give business management advisory and consultancy focusing on human resources and corporate governance for particularly SMEs, but also some big companies as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for your introduction, guys. I think today's topic is very interesting. Ever since MCO has started. And we're talking the very sensitive issue by itself, which is actually talking about cash or cash flow or money in a way. That's why the title is Cash Flow Matters.
Cash flows.
Yeah.
Cash flows matters.
Yeah.
I think when this MCO started, everyone started from the individual, from company. There's so many things happen around. But the first thing that actually comes to their mind, how is the business going to survive, to sustain, and how about our cash flows? How are we going to manage the cash flows and all that? I guess this been like talking among our business person, even though talking among the corporate people and all that. But after more than a month, because we have this first 14 days and extended to another, another 14 days, and now we already like a month, and we're not sure what this going to. Are we going to go back to work in this coming 28 or not? Right? But after all these, the whole entire 30 days or a month, in your opinion, maybe we can start this first question. In your opinion, all our panelists, what is the direct impact on the company, especially for SME? Maybe Dr. Aimi want to actually start from the economic perspective.
Okay. I'll give a broad perspective. Number one, I think it definitely this have a direct impact on the SMEs. Nobody can but it just depends on what industries that you are from. Okay. I think generally what I've done is I have categorized this into 4 main groups. Okay, to the extent they have been affected. Number one, in fact, there are some experiencing positivity out of MCO. There's a demand surge. Okay, there's demand surge. They have to prop up the supply. These are actually company in the e-commerce, okay, company in the logistics, company in pharmaceuticals. Okay, it's obviously it is something that we need, right? Immediately we can recognize that. That is the first category. The second category that I'm looking at is basically is negative but still mild. So the revenue loss may be between less 0 to 15% loss. Okay, in terms of loss of revenue. So these are who are they? They are basically SMEs involved in retail business, consumer goods, restaurants. All right. So they may some of them now they switch to online kind of thing, but they are basically affected. In fact, for the retail shops, they may have good business from the household, but they lost a lot of business. I think orders from the restaurants. Okay, so that is the second category. The third category are those whose loss or revenue is between 15% up to 50%. 15 to 50%, and I categorize that as severe group. So these are industries like oil and gas, okay, petrol stations, okay, obviously, entertainment, sports, okay. They may do online business a little bit here and there. I think people still go to petrol station, but albeit it's very low. So you can see it's quite severe on that part. And the final group, I call it, sorry to say, I call it catastrophic. Okay? Those who experience loss of revenue more than 50%, even though it's 1 month loss of revenue of more than 50%. Obviously, tourism, okay, hospitality, traveling, airlines. Today we have got news. Virgin Australia is in the liquidation process.
Right.
Okay. So sad, you know. So these are the 4 categories. But although there are some demand surge in some areas, but overall, the first 1 month of MCO, we can see the cumulatively is a negative growth. As along with what Bank Negara projection. Although we have not got the numbers yet from Bank Negara, but we ourselves can feel less business almost stand still during the MCO. Okay, that's from me.
So how about you, Shazli? Any thought on this?
So basically, of course, when of course Q3 deals a lot with SMEs, and of course we also have friends that essentially have other businesses and whatnot around. But I think even if we are just a layman looking at the current condition, current economic condition and environment, we can see that this MCO impacts us greatly. Right, because for SMEs, we do know that some SMEs, not only some, actually majority of SMEs are basically people, what we can say that kais pagi makan pagi, right? So the cash flow that they actually have internally sometimes can only last them for just that one particular month, right? So when this MCO is introduced, imposed, the first 14 days, people are okay, right? 14 days should be able to manage that. Then additional 14 days, then people starts to worry, okay, so what is going to happen? Then another 14 days, and we do not know after, I'm sure this Friday, there will be another announcement whether there will be an extension or not. So when that happens, all these companies, I heard from some of my friends that asked me, so what can they do? right? Can they lay off their workers and whatnot? It does impact us overall, not only in Malaysia. I think overall around the world. And yesterday's news, US already registered 22 million unemployment. Malaysia, the figures has yet to come out. So it will in the coming months. We will know what's the actual impact.
Right. All right.
What do you think, Thomas?
So sad.
I'm agree.
Thomas there. Thomas there.
Hello, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm agree on Dr. Aimee and the strategy, but the another part is the impact is the supply chain. So okay, even the essential industry, right? They even allowed to work back, but they are facing the difficulty on the supply chain. MCO and lockup will not happen in Malaysia, but around the world. So some of the material are imported from overseas. We suppliers also facing a lockdown during these 2 months. So technically, even the essential industry is woke back, but I don't think they have the materials on the manufacturing. So all will go back on the same.
Okay.
Yep.
So I like the some of the comment that I think the earlier comment that Datuk gave, right, about the category of these 4 main group. So is it mean that when we have different group, they actually facing different challenges during this time? And is it the people who actually at the first group, I think e-commerce, logistic, pharmaceutical and all that, they are the lucky one? Or what do you think about this?
Doktor kan Datuk.
Sorry, doktor. Sorry ya. Satsul.
Tak lama tu.
Coming soon, Datuk.
Okay.
Itulah dia.
Pertaining, I think to your question, I think of course all these things was unprecedented. Okay, it's something that nobody expected it to be. Okay, not even US, not even Europe, and of course in Malaysia. So whatever happens is something that whatever different industries, they have to adapt and adopt, okay, and move on. As I say that the last category, the catastrophe one, okay, sad to say even SME here has to think either to divest, or to find new types of business. I have seen I think some eatery place that I went to, before MCO. I say, what happened to this guy? Oh no, he already stopped it. Now he's already switching to what business? So basically, he is in the selling fish online via Facebook. So he has moved. So these are things that people must do. If you are in the catastrophe area, you can't survive. You can't pay your rentals. You can talk about overheads or whatnot. But if you are in the category, the other side, it is you are in e-commerce, logistics. Now it's about time for you to build your market presence, build up your market share, invest, more, especially on your systems, invest more trucks, for example, more vans, acquire maybe M&A. This is about time to do M&A, merger and acquisitions, because the business is so good. Everybody needs, if you're a logistic company, everybody needs logistic anyway to the delivery, especially the MCO, even after MCO. Because from what I read, based on the Imperial College research, that the vaccine, can only be found, it will need about 12 to 18 months. So here we're talking about 2 years, cumulatively, when we had it since I think January, or in China in December, it's about 2 years time for us until we have the antivirus for COVID-19. So whatever we have to do now is basically to adapt, as I said, on the business model, like whatever you are.
I think we also have the same comment, right? I think the previous session to adapt.
Just to add, I think this how to say COVID-19 is what is called in risk management is a black swan event, right? It is unprecedented. It is basically when the risks occur, it is never even actually been registered in any of the organization risk profile, right? Because Black Swan event is something that it just happens, right? So and of course, as what Doctor was saying, that some companies needs to actually divest or diversify their business. A friend of mine is actually having more than 200 staff, having tire or a workshop company. Now is actually selling chicken, and he is doing well. He basically ayam segar, fresh chicken. He's selling 500 chicken per day on delivery.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of how you capture the situation, I guess.
Yeah, I think the adaptability is the key word here. So how adaptable your business is, your business model is, that you can actually change very, very quickly in order to adapt to the current situation. I do agree with Thomas also, because in business, although there are some essential services that is running, but because of the supply chains that are not considered as essential services, they are also disrupted one way or another. So they might not be able to perform 100% capacity to as before, but they might have obstacles. Like I saw on the Facebook pages, right? Like some of the logistic company, they do well. They have too many enormous orders, just that they cannot fulfill fast enough to deliver out to the client, to the customer, simply because there weren't enough third-party, logistic chains to support them in per se. You see? Yeah.
Can I just add in something?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. As we're talking about adopt and adapt model here, I think we have to look it from the perspective of SMEs. Okay, not especially the micro business. Okay, and for those example given by Shazli or given by me, Ayam Segar and from the restaurant, if that is the one who can adapt and adopt, there are a lot of SMEs here that really need help. Especially from the government, from government agencies, how to go, but they don't know how. They just like the word in Malay is mati kutu. Compounded. They say bankrupt. That's what.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Talking about help, per doctor, panelists, talking about help. I think talking about help, our PM had on the March 27 unveil an economy stimulus package known as Package Prihatin. That value up to like 250 billion. Okay, this was after the government had enforced the MCO March 18, right? To curb this spread of COVID. So, in your opinion, I think guys, three of you right here, all guys here. So, in your opinion, will this basically the support from the government and can ensure the sustainability of the companies? And if it does, how? Maybe doctor want to start?
Okay. I think the additional stimulus, the 10 billion was put up by the government after I think the Malay Chamber of Commerce and the Chinese Chamber of Commerce had a meeting with it, and what the government has done basically come up with additional 10 billion to add to the 250 billion underlines the importance of SMEs on the survivability, because as we know, SMEs is basically, if I have some numbers here, made 98% of all businesses establishment in Malaysia, 98%. And they contributed 30% to the economy. They employ 65% of the total workers in Malaysia. That's how impactful is the SMEs. Yes, no doubt, there's a lot of government support to the SMEs from the first package, even from the package of the 20 billion was initially launched by the former Prime Minister, Tun Mahathir. They were talking about SMEs also. So they never lost focus on the SMEs. For me, the question is, how fast can it reach the SMEs? That's what I want to talk about. Because the money was put through the FI, okay, the financial institution, FI. So, you know, and I think you all know, I think when you pass through FI, Shazli is smiling already. That's why I want to discuss this point. You know, there's a lot of cost of documentation you have to comply with.
Yeah,
I receive a lot of feedback on this, but the case is how fast or enough for you to save a dying company, because just now we're talking about the microcredit businesses. They don't last more than 1 month. Now we are already 1 month. Next next week you can see a lot of people closing shop.
Yes.
Okay, and then you have to comply with CITOS, CIPRIS. Then one of my friends complained that they want to apply for loan from this. It's 0%. I don't want to mention the bank. The bank asks, you cannot open the business here. You cannot have your branch running here. You have to run your business this over here. That is not for you.
Too many restrictions.
Too many restrictions. I know how. That's why I said the question is, of course, MOF has have this Laksana, to basically to implement all these things. But how effective in terms of, I think let the market speak. I think they have spoken enough. I think for the next few months, I think there will be a lot of outcry out there after the Hari Raya, especially when people got no money after Hari Raya. They will start
We are
crying.
not sure either we're going to have our Raya this year or not.
Definitely not.
Raya with Zoom.
Okay, that's my opinion on this.
Sure.
How about you, Thomas? You have anything, anything about this stimulus package?
Actually, a lot of industry, right? Even my clients, they are welcome to measure, but they all complain about the supplementals, right? Not enough time to keep the business going on. Because on the industry, SME, right? If let's say you are a business owner, our main burden is the money cash flow. Imagine sales drop, invoice haven't due, debtors in our payment. But the fixed commitment is still there. Still you have to pay EPF, SST, LHDM. The burdens, right, will still going on to stick together. So if let's say government is willing to help the industry, I thinking maybe they can consider to come up for the moratorium for the SST or HDM payment. This might be help the cash flow on the industry. Or else the burden still there. Even they coming some of the package for the PSU, but not help them so much on the cash flow.
Okay. So how about you, Shazli? When you talk about the economic stimulus package, everything, it sounds like very billions of dollars, billions of ringgit Malaysia. And here, the doctor said it's not easy to tap. You can see the numbers, but you cannot reach the numbers. Not even can touch the numbers because there's so many.
So near yet so far.
Yeah, so near, but yet so far. And Thomas said they can do more.
So basically, when the announcement of 250 billion, some quarters were saying that it is actually not 250 billions. It's only 20 to 30 billions or 50 billion, something like that. That actually contributes to the actual money that comes up from the government coffers. The rest is just moratorium and deferment of loans and whatnot. So, but then again, when I think for SMEs, they are looking into how to manage, how to control their cash flow. Right, and the first announcement of WSP, the wages subsidy program of 600 ringgit, I myself was saying that 600 is insufficient. You cannot be 4,000 below and you're just giving it 600. And then after that, of course, after the discussion and whatnot, it was increased to 1,200. Okay, 1,200. But then again, when you're talking about 1,200, the EPF, so rates still remains the same. It's actually based on the gross salary as well. So companies still have to actually cover that. But it's okay. Let's not talk about that. But then we talk about the loans financing that the doctor was asking. The reason why I was smiling. Government actually gave a guarantee of 80% guarantee of all the loans under this 10 billion stimulus package for SMEs, right? You can actually apply through IMSME and whatnot, and even BSN gave 0%. BSN were actually instructed to give a 0% loan interest free up to 75,000 ringgit for these SMEs. But then again, banks being banks, of course controls are very important. The risk management, they have to go through all the risk management process to look whether the companies are able to pay. They just want to avoid NPL. But then again, my question is it has been guaranteed 80%.
Mm.
If you owe 75, if you borrow from the bank 100,000, you are only basically, if this NPL is only 20,000 that you have to actually cough up. Like 30,000 could be just 1 year or 1 or 2 years repayment. If NPL happens, you can get the money back from the government. That's I think, of course, I have not raised this matter up to any bankers. But
you just give an idea to people out there start to actually question.
Because of course, Bank Negara do put certain clauses there. If let's say your loans or financing are not approved, you can actually complain to Bank Negara, and they will do the investigation. Yeah, by all means lah. But the thing is, the first step with all the, but I could not actually blame banks in full. I have some of the blames needs to be shared by the SMEs as well, because that's important. Both sides of the fence needs to actually look into this. How, and even maybe government, because when the government actually introduced this saying 80% guaranteed, but when it is said that it will be, I understand the reason why it is being given to FIs, because only FIs have the necessary manpower to manage this. You cannot push this back to Bank Negara to manage all these loans application or not. But then again, maybe a certain leeways or some certain strictness needs to be loosened with banks for SMEs for this period of time.
I just to add it, Alvin, on that. I think we cannot. I think as Shazli said, it's important to understand that if you give to SME Bank or BSN Bank, they are obliged to follow Bank Negara ruling because they are under Bank Negara. The other way for government to distribute the loan is go through agencies that are not related to those under the purview of Bank Negara. So there are so many government agencies that can be done, you know. There are Tekun, Amanah Ikhtiar, there are so many non-FI bodies. Yeah, that's why I say I will use the word FI instead of banks. You know? That's the reason why. Because they're subject, because you can't change the law. You know, of course, there's no time. Nobody going to parliament now. But so you have to look at from that angle how to expedite, the disbursement, because I think some of them are about going to say 911 already by next week.
I agree with that 911. 911. Yeah. So since when we talk about 911, doctor, right? Some SME cannot stand with this the current slowness of the economy more than 3 months. Like you said, I think not even after this after end of this April, we not even know. I think some of the micro company, micro business already closed down their shop by now. Yeah. So what your thought in this on this even though you, like you said just now, the package is there, the stimulus package is there, but the disbursement is low, and here on the other side they are not fulfilling the requirement that actually made to be able to tap into that packages and all that. So what do you thought on this?
Me? Okay. All right. Oh, okay.
Tanya sebab dia jawab dulu tadi kan, jadi kena
alamak. I think definitely the SMEs in general, many cannot withstand. I think more than 3 months. Okay, I think they're looking at maybe 3 to 6 months, the whole MCO period. That's very tough. That's why the moratorium was given for 6 months. So it's something that I would like to refer. I have some statistics here from INSEF. Some of you have read it. Basically INSEF got this data from DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia. It says here that 71.4% of the SMEs doesn't have cash reserve more than 1 month. 71.4% doesn't have reserve more than 1 month. Okay, so if you detail out further based on the research by himself, lecturer professors here, about 71.4% micro businesses cannot last more than 1 month, just like Amelia said just now. Some of them close shop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so some of the interesting data here, you're talking about the differences between the workers with the SMEs. They cannot survive 82.7% surveyed said they cannot survive more than 2 months.